Good morning. So good. Very excited to be with you this morning. Thank you so much for joining me at 8:05 for my coffee time. Today I want to talk about how do you cope. A few years ago, one of my nephews was very young. I think he might have been 4.5. And we were rushing to get out of the house, and everybody was barking orders at him. And he sat down on the kitchen floor and he said, "I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to poop on my head." And everybody is trying to cajole him and get him out of there. And then I was like, took all my effort to not just laugh at that. Then recently I was looking at the way I cope with things, and I noticed that I'm really not that much more mature than my nephew. My way of coping is just to throw something and start to cry. Now, I know that sounds really funny, but when I broke my leg and I was trying to use the crutches, I couldn't use the crutches. I got so frustrated. I just threw the crutches down and I just sat there and cried. And I've used this technique for very many years. I just cry. But when I'm done with my good cry, I use my coping skills. But they're not really readily available to me until my first cry. And what I realized is that I took a class in the internet a few years ago. And it was so above my head, I felt so overwhelmed all the time, that after the class, every day, I would cry. And in dental school, when it got hard or something like that, the minute I got in my car, I would cry. And what I realized is I needed to figure out what it was, what emotion it was that made me just want to cry all the time. And I realized that it was fear of the unknown, inability to process all this stuff, inability to organize all this stuff. And now what I want to share with you today is how I try to cope when things get overwhelming. Even though a lot of times I still cry, I want to admit that right away from the beginning. I'm still a pretty big initial crier. But what I realized is on Jeopardy, those people are really smart. And what they do is they figure out what questions they have to ask. And that's what it is for me too. And I think it's for all of us in order to cope. What are your questions? When people just give you knowledge and you don't know what the question is, it's just overwhelming to you. But if you figure out what your questions are, then you could figure out what knowledge you need, and then you can see what it is you want to know. And then you can cope with it because it's your questions. So, like, for example, I'm beginning to do a course. I'm going to teach a course on Udemy. And it's overwhelming to me how to teach this course, everything I have to do, how to organize myself, and this and that. And now, today, what I did over the weekend is wrote out my questions. I began by looking at myself and realizing if I want to empower myself to be able to do this, how am I going to do that? And it begins with me and all the knowledge that I want to share with people. And then I need to prepare and plan a little bit, organize my thoughts, write out the timeline, exchange ideas of what I'm going to teach, and then figure out what results I want. What are my objectives? And what I did this weekend is I used this little formula to figure out how I was going to do the course. And today I'm ready to take on the world. I'm ready to take on this class. I'm excited about going to work. I'm excited, of course, to drink coffee with you. And I know that I'm prepared. And I feel like I'm Jeopardy ready. I'm really smart. I have the questions, and I'm going to win at this game. And I hope that if you're ready to start something, we'll go over this formula together, and we'll all be able to move forward successfully and live our best life by being empowered in it. and by have the questions and getting the knowledge, and when things go wrong, having coping skills set up so that we don't just sit on the floor or just sit and cry in your car or just give up, throw down the towel and say, I can't do it. I think we can all do it together, but I think sometimes we just need to focus a little bit on how do we cope? How are we going to handle things when they go wrong? Make a plan for ourselves. I hope this really works for you. I mean, the weather is beautiful today. Even my coffee tastes better today because I'm in the right mindset to get this done. I am going to ask you I want to thank you for watching this coffee time, and I would love for you to share it with friends of yours, people on your list, so that we could build the community, because I think we all need to do this. I think we all need to cope better, and I think if we do it as a community, it'll be so much better. I also would love to ask you that if you're going through a transition time right now and you're having trouble coping, if you could just share with me what those are so we could address them. I want to say good morning to Tina and Janet and Wendy and Susan and Harris and all the people that are watching me. Thank you. And Diane and Michael, and thank you so much. Ronnie and Rhonda, thank you so much for watching me. Thank you so much for sharing your coffee with me, and have a enjoyable big day, because you know how I feel. It's a big day. Bye. I'll see you tomorrow.